All right. Weekly baseball rundown fans. I only have the south side and the north side, so I'm going to be the border in between.
The border
Well,
guard.
Exactly. But since I have these two here, we're talking about superstitions and curses this week. The two of the longest, may I add. Hey, hey, I know you're backstage, Mr. St. Dennis. Stop it. But no, it's funny that I have these three guys here today. Red Sox, 86 years. White Sox, 88 years. And the Cubs, 108 years. Three of the most prolific curses ever. I'm here to talk about curses and superstitions, and one of the big ones, Wade Boggs. Wade Boggs was known as the Chicken Man. He'd always eat chicken every night when he played for Boston, whether he played for the Yankees or whoever. Took ground balls at the same time, took batting practice at the same time. That was the way he worked. But my biggest one so far for the White Sox was they had only so few times where they actually made the playoffs, let alone the World Series. 1959. 1959. Before 2005 was the last time they made it. This guy weren't, and me weren't, or David weren't even born then. But as of now, it's been 20 years since the White Sox have won a World Series. Brandon, after only 20 years, do you think the White Sox go down that trail where they add another 68 years to the next time they appear in a World Series?
I sure hope not. I mean, I had a lot of hope in 2021 when we won 94 games, but the hiring of Tony La Russa set this franchise back another decade. I would say we're back into another deep rebuild. But even though we've pulled off majorly since the All Star break, I still see the growth in all of our prospects, especially Colson Montgomery. He's been on fire ever since he got called up, and I knew he was going to be good, and we're definitely seeing that. I don't know how the rest of the season is going to look for us, but I think in another 2 or so years, I think this team will be back in the playoffs. And who knows if we go back to the World Series? The American League is very competitive, and we'll see how we build upon our starting rotation, we build upon our lineup. But I don't think we're going to wait another 60 years until the Sox are in another World Series.
That, honestly, if that happens, I'd be very surprised because that's absolutely nuts that they had to wait 42 and then have to wait another 46 years just for that to happen. And I don't think that'll happen again because there's been so many things that have happened in the White Sox history books where they've had guys, and I honestly think Hawk Harrelson's not going to be around for the next one, honestly. But on a more positive note, the White Sox are doing better, and I think Brandon is on an accurate assumption right now. I'm going to talk about Chicago on the other side now. More accurate. It's going to be a easy way to say this. Josh is only 45. I don't mean to mention his age for any
No, that's
particular
fine.
reason. He was born in 1980. When he was 4, the Cubs had their first shot at the pennant after not winning one since 1908. No, I'm wrong. I think it was 1929. They lost to the A's in 29 and they lost to the A's in 30. Not 30. They lost to Detroit, I think, in 30. But it took them all that time, just this massive timeline, until 1984, where they lose the pennant due to a error by Leon Durham playing first base because someone spilled Gatorade on his glove in between innings. How that happens, why that happens, you never know. It's a superstition thing that, like with a no hitter, you don't talk to a guy. With a perfect game, you don't talk to a guy. When a guy's in a slump, he'll wear the same underwear. Jason Giambi wore a golden thong at one point to get out of slumps. and he let Derek Jeter wear it when he was with the Yankees. So there's that. But for the Cubs, 84 came along. They lost. 89. Greg Maddux doesn't cover his mouth with his glove. And that's where that started, is when Don Zimmer asks him to pitch to Will Clark. How should he pitch him? He sees the words from across the way at home plate. He hears fastball. Clark launches one 435 feet into the right center field bleachers for a grand slam. The Cubs would not be that good again until the mid to early 2000s. Till 2003. 95 years in the making. 6 outs away. And I know this has been told many times, but Bartman is not the reason. And I'm going to get a lot of trouble for that. Bartman was not the reason. Like with the whole thing with Buckner. Bartman is not the biggest reason. 3-0 lead going into the 8th inning with one of your best young pitchers on the mound, that's Dusty Baker's fault. He overthrew guys like Zambrano, Kerry Wood, and Mark Pryor. Do I think if they pulled him there, would anything have changed? No. Best pitchers in there in the moment. And of course, later in the same season, you have Grady Little not pulling Pedro Martinez. Both of those were massive games, too, that would have led to the World Series. I think they were both game 6s, too.
I believe so.
You can't believe in superstitions if you don't believe both those teams were meant to face each other 85 years versus, at the time, 95 years. But the baseball gods had other things going on. They let the Marlins face the Yankees. The Cubs melt down and lose Game 6. The Yankees come back and win in Game 6. And that's history. It would take the Cubs another 13 years to get to the World Series. But I think the baseball gods paid them back, and you guys can tell me how you feel about it. 10th inning, Game 7 in Cleveland. Davis ties the game in the bottom of the 8th off Aroldis Chapman, against Aroldis Chapman. And in my eyes, Cleveland has the momentum. If there's no rain delay in Cleveland that night, Chicago's waiting is now 9 years longer into it. 117 years at that point.
100%. If that rain delay hadn't happened,
I'm going to ask both of you, because you're both Chicago fans and they both have your superstitions. Josh, you're first, because I had Brandon do his. Do you think, and this isn't a religious thing. This is baseball is not what I consider religion. Do you believe in the baseball gods? If it doesn't rain, does Cleveland come back and win that series?
I think actually 100% yes, because they had the momentum going into that 10th inning, and without the stoppage with the rain, the Cubs didn't have that chance to go in the clubhouse, have that, and it was Jason Hayward that actually gave them the pep talk and got them back out on the field energized. If they didn't have that pep talk and that however long the rain delay was, I can't remember at this point, but without the rain delay, I think we're stuck.
Okay. Now, I'll get Brandon's side, because I know a lot of things can happen in a World Series. Do you think Cleveland comes from behind in that bottom of the 10th inning? Because the Cubs didn't have anybody on base when it was just the start of the 10th inning.
Like when the Cubs took the lead?
I'm talking about not if they took the lead. I'm talking about a scenario where they go into that clubhouse, but no Hayward speech or anything. Just completely down. It was a 17-minute rain delay. So 17 minutes is a long time. That's about the same amount of time as an inning is normally. So if there's no rain delay and the Cubs go down 1-2-3, does Cleveland have a chance?
Oh, 100% they do. I absolutely think that they do. They don't score. I can't remember who Cleveland had up in that half of the inning, but I do think they get a couple of hits down, and then they score one, and the Cleveland and their drought, because at that point it was like 60-something years since they last won the championship.
They had won in 1948, I believe.
Yeah, but yeah, I definitely think with no Hayward speech and even with the rain delay, I do think that Cleveland does score in that bottom half, and the whole entire history of baseball is different.
So I'm going to look at something here because I think play-by-play for Baseball Reference is still available. I'm hoping it is. Because I know Michael Martinez made the final out. So let's see. So top of the 10th inning, and it was Schwarber, Bryant, and Rizzo coming in. So
and Schwarber came off the bench from injury.
Yeah, and he had no business being in there. And that's something else. Schwarber doesn't screw up his knee. He doesn't play in this World Series. But 2 runs get scored because of Zobrist and from Miguel Montero. But in this scenario, Schwarber doesn't get on base. Bryant still flies out. And then Rizzo strikes out instead of getting intentionally walked by Brian Shaw. The order would have been Mike Napoli, Jose Ramirez, and then Brandon Guyer, then immediately followed by Rajay Davis, who would face Carl Edwards Jr. I think things could have gone a lot differently because they did end up getting somebody to second base, and then Davis hits the game-winning base hit. And after all that, find the right thing. Then after all that, Rajay Davis would have been a World Series hero
and World Series MVP.
If there's no rain delay. So the Cubs literally won because the baseball gods, I think that was all the tears of the Cubs fans from the past. Just
yeah, it was one of those moments you couldn't have written it any better. You couldn't have written it better in the sports columns.
No, you couldn't have. But another one that I get down to is 1986 with the Red Sox. Because I'll see if I can get the play-by-play on that one. If that's possible, may I add. 1986, Game 6. Because I think Baseball Reference has this stuff. They should. Oh, they do. Thank God they do. Okay. So the game ends 6-5 in the 10th inning, but they're up 5-3. 5-3. And they were down 2-0. They end up tying the game. The Mets tie the game and everything else. Yeah, they tie the game. Runner scores against Roger Clemens. And then they pull Roger after the 6th inning. No, 7th inning. He goes 7 innings. They didn't say exactly how many pitches he threw. But they do get a runner home against Roger McDowell in the 7th inning. So they're up 3-2. And then it's tied. Yes. It's tied 3-3 heading into the top of the 9th. They go into extra innings. Calvin Schiraldi is thrown his 2nd inning in the bottom of the 8th, and in the bottom of the 9th. Nobody is up in that bullpen right now. Henderson homers against Rick Aguilar. Marty Barrett singles home Wade Boggs. Calvin Schiraldi should have never been in there for his 3rd inning. Now, McNamara didn't made the decision to keep him in for a 3rd inning. But you got a 5-3 lead. I think if I'm McNamara, my closer's starting in that bottom half of the 10th inning for a game 6. Because I'm not pitching for tomorrow. In my eyes, I want that World Series won. And after 78 years, no, 68. 68 years at that time. Because it'd be another 18 after that. But if I'm the manager, if I'm McNamara, that bullpen, I don't know how spent it is, but don't bring in Bob Stanley after the fact. Because Schiraldi's on fumes at this point. He gets the first 2 guys, but then he gives up 1, 2, 3 hits in a row. So Do you pull Calvin Schiraldi and bring in Bob Stanley? Brandon?
See, you just brought it up. Like, if it's game 6, like I'm not playing till tomorrow. I'm trying to win it now. So, I mean, and again, hindsight, it didn't work out because the Mets came back, won. We had the Buckner play and everything. But yeah, I'm pulling out all the stops. So yeah, I'm trying to win.
And that's just it. You have a 2-run lead in the
Exactly,
bottom of
that
the 10th
too.
inning, and you're ahead. Because that reminds me of the ALCS where the Angels are ahead, and that goes to a game 7, and then Boston wins. Because Gene Mock, who had never went to a World Series in 27 years of managing, let Donnie Moore in the game. He brought his closer in, but Donnie Moore hangs a forkball to Dave Henderson, and they go on to lose. So, Josh, same question. Do you pull your tiring reliever after 2 innings plus in game 6? You won't need him for tomorrow because you're winning right now.
Well, and see, that's the thing. If he's spent, I mean, for me as a manager, and people will disagree with me on this because everybody likes to, nowadays when they go with the pitch count. I say if the pitcher's feeling good, let it. If he thinks he can keep going, let him keep going. Because if you're not going to use him the next day, then he gets a day of rest. But if he's spent and possibly going to cost you runs, you really got to think about pulling him.
Just to give you guys accuracy right now, Schiraldi in reality went 2 2/3. He threw 55 pitches in that outing.
Ooh, that's high.
When they finally pulled him, he threw 55 pitches. Bob Stanley threw 7 strikes out of the 10 pitches. And 7 of them were contact strikes. So all of his strikes were by contact. He got 1 ground ball, and unfortunately it was the Buckner play, and Bob Stanley wasn't going to get there. And he allowed both of his runs to score.
I don't know. And Brandon, what do you think? I mean, if your pitcher's out of gas, what are you going to do?
Yeah, I would take him out. I would take him out as well. Get a fresh arm, especially with a 2-run lead. Yeah, I would absolutely I would take him out, especially after 55 pitches. That's almost unheard of for a reliever.
Well, here's something that'll actually surprise you. Clemens was pissed off because he got pulled after 134 pitches because he wasn't pitching the rest of the series. I'm not talking about Randy Johnson in 2001 where he throws 100 pitches and then comes back out for the next day. I'm talking about prime Roger Clemens. I think he was in his 3rd season at this point. This is 20 strikeout Roger Clemens. At the end of it, he's not throwing another pitch this season. He's got the entire offseason to rest. He's got the World Series parade at that point. He can relax. I think Clemens could have gone the rest of the way, even if it is 3-3. Because I'm sure the bullpen, because another thing is, the Mets with Davey Johnson, Bob Ojeda, who was opposite Roger Clemens that night, he threw 88 pitches over 6 innings. And then there was 3 other pitchers after him. McDowell throws an inning and 2/3, 45 pitches. Orozco faces 1 hitter, throws 1 pitch, gets an out, and it was a fly ball. He had the bases loaded, and he got the out. Rick Aguilera, great closer, but he's the one who blew the game in the top of the 10th inning. So, honestly, this could have been so much worse. Okay, so I got a question for both of you. Okay, let me see if that makes sense. So, Brandon, how did you feel when the Cubs won the World Series back in 2016?
When it happened, when that final out happened, I remember I was at some bar in Chicago. I just got up while everyone went crazy. I just went up and I just clapped, like a golf clap.
And that's the most respectful thing you can do as a White Sox fan when the Cubs
Yeah.
finally broke their curse. Because I honestly didn't imagine that the Cubs would ever win one in my lifetime, at least. Because there's people who went to their grandparents' graves and everything else, and their parents' graves for that matter. They were crying. They were emotional. It was the happiest Chicago had been since the Bulls started doing stuff and winning. It's the happiest they had been in a long time. Now, Josh, this is going to be a little tough for you because this is going to be the other way around. How did you feel when the White Sox broke their curse back in 2005?
Well, you know what? You're going to be surprised at the answer because I was actually at the home of a guy I used to work with in the sheriff's department, and we were watching the game because he's a White Sox fan. I was very happy when they won because it's a Chicago team. It really didn't matter if you're a Cubs fan, a White Sox fan. Your team, for the city of Chicago, won that World Series, and yes, I went out and bought the T-shirt and showed it off for weeks because it had been forever since the Chicago team had been to a World Series, American or National League. So you're happy for your city and the fans of that team that worked so hard to get to that World Series.
I can't say it much better than that. That's because that's just the way it is. Because now that the A's have moved to Sacramento, I'm never the closest I, as a fan of the Oakland A's, ever came to watching them win a pennant was 2006. I cried the day that Maglio Ordonez hit that home run off Houston Street. Because that was the closest. I realized quite literally the Tigers are going to be the biggest problem for the A's the rest of the time. 2012, 2013, knocked them out. 2014, they lose. 2017, they lose. 2018, they lose. 2019, they lose. 2020, they finally beat the White Sox, but it's not even worth it. They get their first win in 15 years. They make it to the next round just to lose to Houston. Then they lose in 21, 22, they don't even make it. 23, they're terrible. Last year, they're terrible. This year, they're good, but it doesn't matter. It's
Well, and that's what I don't understand. Like in the case of the Cubs and White Sox, I know we have diehards on both sides of the city, but you should just be happy that your team, whether it's American League or National League, wins a World Series or goes to the playoffs, wins a pennant. I mean, I don't know what else to say because like when the White Sox won the World Series in 2005, I was out there with the T-shirt, and people were like, "Well, you're a Cubs fan, you can't wear White Sox stuff." Yes, I can.
You can be happy for your crosstown rivals. That was exactly it. That's why when the Nationals won 25 years after 94, everybody who was an Expos fan was happy for the Nationals because they feel like that's still their team. 25 years later, 25 years too late, but still 25 years later, they could be happy that the team that they helped build won a championship. But the biggest superstition that I know of was always when players got into these good hitting streaks, they would not change their undergarments. They would not wash them. And I can't imagine somebody doing that. I know players like to, I forget who it was. It was like Rogers Hornsby or someone like that. It was somebody. They went to sleep with their bat to try and get it to know it better. Like the oddest one that I know of, there's two instances. Both of them, unfortunately, involve urine. One was Moises Alou, constantly playing and everything else. He never wore batting gloves, ever. He pissed on his hands to make them tougher. He never wore batting gloves. But the weirdest one of all was Kevin Millar. I don't think you guys know about this one. he wore feet. He put female. He put doe urine on his hands, and it soaked to his batting gloves and everything else, and it got all. He did not hit better. It was just the dumbest thing in the world. He did not hit better, and his hands smelled like urine, and then he had to go wash it off and everything else. But it's the fact that these superstitions can or can't work. That's
And
just the silly part of baseball, though.
and nowadays, and I want to get Brandon's take on this. I mean, with the wonderful internet, these players got to be careful what they do, because if any of that stuff gets out, it's on social media within 15 seconds of somebody finding out.
It's kind of ridiculous how they used to play baseball, but
I think Jorge Posada did the same thing Moises Alou did, and he didn't wear batting gloves either.
no, and that's just it. I like the no batting gloves look because I used to do that when I was in Little League. I didn't wear batting gloves, but a metal bat versus a wooden bat, you get splinters. Metal bat, you swing that bat at the wrong spot, it shakes up your whole hands, it just hurts.
Yeah.
Like, that ting isn't from the ball hitting the bat. That's the sound of your knuckles being rearranged from first finger to fifth. But my favorite one actually is 1990, I think it was 98 or 99. David Wells goes to the mound wearing Babe Ruth's cap, an authentic Babe Ruth cap, might I add. And they ended up finding him for it. He paid them. And it was game used now by David Wells and Babe Ruth. He sold it for $500,000.
Well, he just paid for his fine.
He made $475,000 back from $25,000 being fined to him. So that's one of my favorite things. Is the guy made $500,000 because he decided to wear the hat, and it was from 1927 or something like that. But superstitions are what makes baseball great. But I highly suggest not eating your baseball bat, because I used to see Yasiel Puig lick the bat and everything else, and I'm like, you hit it against stuff. You got pine tar on it. I'm pretty sure pine tar is not part of a major food group.
And I read a thing, and Brandon probably saw this too. When he was doing that, licking the bat, he was licking the pine tar. That's what he was going after.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes. He was licking the pine tar.
Yeah, that was disgusting.
Yeah.
I understand liking a hot dog or a nice burger at the ballpark, but pine tar? Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, some of these things these players do is it gets to be in the strange range.
So I think we better end on that note. Okay. Now that we're done with curses and superstitions, both these teams won in 05 and 16, and they won. They were very happy about it. I'm sure when David was too young at the time when the Red Sox first won, but I hope eventually every team, because every team has not won a World Series. Seattle was the only team to never win it. I hope eventually they do, because Seattle hasn't had a championship in actual years, whether it was the Sonics or otherwise.
Yeah.
And yes, I'm still pissed off that they moved the team from, Tampa Bay too, but Tampa Bay is still young. Seattle's had the worst of it because they had the 116 win season and they didn't even make it to the World Series. But I don't know how to feel about the realignment. We'll talk about that hopefully next week. But they're bringing in expansion teams again in a few seasons, so we'll see how baseball shapes up. But in the meantime, CBA is going to expire next year. We'll get to that soon. But thank you guys again for another wonderful show about curses and superstitions. Don't let a black cat cross your path. Don't go under any ladders. Don't break a glass. Stone Cold will kick your ass.
There you go.